everything that was out there.
Huh?
I pulled up everything that was out there. I was looking for your sister to be here tonight.
She's
How's she doing? Feeling better?
yeah, much better.
Good.
Much better. She's feeling almost normal.
I know you feeling a little bad.
Hmm?
I know you feeling a little bad after Monday night.
Ricky told me, Ricky sent me, he said, I'm still enjoying our 17th anniversary. He said, man, I know you were with Charles right Sunday afternoon. They moved into Joyce's old church.
Charles had moved into Joyce's old church.
Ricky was over there singing.
Mm.
It was strange because normally if he's not going to be here on Sunday, he'll text me and say, we're not going to do this. But he wanted me to ask him a question. So he wouldn't have to lie to me. What y'all gonna do with Big Ben? Keep him?
I'm trying to get rid of him.
Ben ready to
I can be better than that. I can be about as good as he can right about now.
Y'all about the same age.
Yeah, I got him better.
You sure it's Ben's fault?
What? Yeah, you see the game?
No, I ain't see the game.
Yeah, he looking terrible, man. I'm telling you, he looking real bad. I like being with him.
Well, y'all sure don't want to see that boy from Cleveland. That boy had all them sacks Sunday from Cleveland. Woo. He was in the backfield with them boys more than the quarterback.
It's a crazy season. He the Chiefs. They screwed, man. Guess who we play this weekend? The Chiefs.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Oh, we got the Chargers this weekend. We got a tough one. In L.A.
Yeah,
That's such a funny thing that team has been doing over the years. Raiders. Los Angeles, nowhere. Somewhere, nowhere. Los Angeles, nowhere. Las Vegas.
We was Oakland, then we was Los Angeles, then we went back to Oakland. Now we Las Vegas.
Yeah, we gotta be next year.
Don't make no difference. We still
y'all
Raider.
studying now, dude. So y'all might stay there for a while.
We still Raider Nation, baby.
Gotta do it.
That you studying that guy off the chain, so they might still be there for a while.
Yeah, they call it the Death Star. The people come down and for their wishes to die.
My buddy, I got another buddy. He's a Raider fan.
Oh, that mercy, boy. My granddaughter done started already. Papa, for my birthday and for Christmas. Wait a minute, girl. Your birthday and Christmas ain't but 7 days.
We get it early. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
They come out this year, we do watch it.
Every time I try to get it early, though, she changed her mind for her birthday or Christmas to get here. So I usually wait till the week of.
I make it very easy. Take care about some money. There you go. I go through the chapter.
Oh, her mama and her grandma, yeah. They just get gift cards.
How old is she?
6.
6-year-old, nobody give a crap.
Oh no, I said her mama and her grandmama get gift cards. She don't do gift cards. She want toys.
Oh yeah, like kids. They're not teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Babies, yeah, I take care of them, but kids, they were 12, 13. And they must go in the stores with me, but
No, one year I went out shopping for my ex-wife and my daughter. One of them said, "This looks like some coochie mess." The other one said, I don't know where it is. I said, okay. They ain't been getting nothing but gift cards from Navy Federal Credit Union ever since. I don't even waste my time going trying to shop no more.
Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Welcome to another iteration of the Bible study, Wednesday night Bible study at the Olive Grove Baptist Church in the city of Norfolk, Virginia. We're happy to have those who have gathered with us and those who I call them the untouchables, because I can't touch you or see you, but I have a sense that you are there. Thank you for your willingness to engage us in this conversation tonight, and for your presence from week to week in our collective or joint effort toward growing in grace and in our knowledge and understanding of who our Lord and Savior Jesus is. Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for this opportunity, for the privilege that allows us to assemble once again in your house and in your name, that here we might consider your word and its implications for our lives. Breathe on the time that we share, that as a consequence of these endeavors we might be edified, but that you, more importantly, would be glorified. Bless us in our efforts to speak your word in a language that is understandable and life-changing, and we'll forever give your name praise. Through Christ our Savior and Lord we pray. Amen. Well, we continue our conversation through the book of Judges. Last week we ended at the very end of chapter 11, and with a pretty spirited conversation. As a matter of fact, I wish those of you who were not present had been a part of the continuing conversation, because there was some spillover after our time together, but you must be present to win. Now, tonight we'll begin our conversation in the 12th chapter, in the first verse of the book of Judges. I've come to call this time the Ephraimite Controversy, and I've called it that because of the controversy involving the tribe of Ephraim, or some people call Manasseh and Ephraim, or Ephraim. Ephraim is the Hebrew. The tribe, the Joseph people, the Joseph tribes, after Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. What do you think about popularity polls? What do you think about rankings, how people are accepted in the polls, how they are received by people? What do you think about that? The president has so-and-so approval ratings. Former presidents even have approval ratings. I've noticed that for lots of people, their approval ratings go up the farther away you get from their presidencies. When you think about the first George Bush, by the time he left office after his one term, he had a really, really low approval rating. But by the time he died, he was being held up as one of the most popular presidents in history. And I guess the more people have time to forget about your mistakes, the easier it is for them to remember good things that you've done. So we have these polls, these approval ratings, these popularity polls that are used to grade presidents. And maybe it's true that we use the same kinds of things to grade other people, but since it's not on YouTube, and I guess if it is on YouTube or Facebook, you grade them by the number of followers they have or by the number of likes they have. And so that people get bent out of shape when they post on Facebook and they don't get many likes. But when they get lots of likes, then they see that as an indication that their popularity, at least for that one posting is up. What do you think about the value of approval ratings and popularity polls? You don't think anything about it. What's your approval rating? What elements contribute to a favorable approval rating?
I would say for approval rating, I look at it as if you using it to promote yourself, it's a good thing. And also can be a bad thing as well, because a lot of times people take the assumption that they know who you are until they really find out who you really truly is. So a lot of people use the rating to make it so that you can get a good mark. So it can be good for you and it can be bad for you.
Anybody else? Yes, Mary.
How you know it was me?
Because I see it was either that or Lorna's got two right hands.
I was just
and
thinking,
one of them is on each side.
I was just thinking that sometimes polls and approval ratings are tied to circumstances and emotions.
Yeah.
And we need to be careful not to think it's representative of the truth.
Yeah.
Just how people are feeling.
Yeah. And even if it is related to the truth, it's probably the last thing you did, the last public thing, the last thing that people know about. And the farther away you get from an event, perhaps the more your approval rating is inclined to improve. You think about Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, at 100 years old, is still remembered as for the whole body of his work over his lifetime, even though when he was president, he served only one term, and by the time he left office, his successor, Richard, not Nixon, Reagan, had Jimmy Carter like a complete abject failure, based on everything we know about his life and his reputation around the world by now. He is regarded as one of the premier ambassadors for democracy alive today. Not so when he left office on January the 20th in, what would that be, 1979. He could have left in shame had he believed everything that people said about him. I think he's the only president we have had who was a rocket scientist. So we know he's a smart guy. Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar, but Jimmy Carter was a rocket scientist, and we think rocket scientists are so small so smart we've even made a whole saying about rocket scientists and how smart they are. Well, there was this fella we read about last week, and for the last 2 weeks, as a matter of fact, named Jephthah. He's a pretty good guy. He was so popular that even though his brothers didn't want him, his brothers didn't like him, and insisted that he be put away, he became a thug. He became known as a fighter. He became known as an effective leader. And some of the same people who had insisted that he be exiled went to him when they were in trouble to ask him to help them. Come bail us out. You come be our leader. You come take over our army. You come and serve us as our judge. We'll surrender to your way. He was skeptical at first about it because he recognized that they had not treated him so when he was living among them, but they came to ask him to come to them, and he was effective when he came to them for the most part. His first effort to defend the Israelites was a diplomatic effort, and he tried to convince the Ammonites to make a deal so that nobody had to die in order for these people who were really fighting over territory to get what they wanted. Each group believed that their God had given them certain territory, and therefore they had a right to insist that they have the title to the lands that they occupied, but they serve different gods. And so when Jephthah would speak, he'd speak in language that revealed that the land had been given through Moses and Joshua by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But when the Ammonites, they served idols, and this controversy swelled and swelled, and over a long period of time, it grew to fisticuffs, and they ended up in a fight. Well, when Jephthah was trying to assemble the army, he invited the other tribes to come and join in and help him. And among the tribes that he invited to help were the tribe of Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, the Ephraimites. But they declined. And then Jephthah and the Israelites won. They were victorious. And after they were victorious, the same people who had come to him saying, "Come and help us," were among the people who were so eager to bother him when they thought they should be invited to have more to say about what happened to the spoils, what happened after the battle, and it was time to divide what had been taken in that war. And it's in it's in Judges chapter 12, the first verse, that we read something about what happened.
The Ephraimite forces were called out, and they crossed over to Zaham. They said to Jephthah, "Why did you go to fight the Ammonites without calling us to go with you? We're going to burn down your house over your head."
Oh my! They were really, really, really. They had a lot of nerve to come and accuse the man who they had enlisted to come to their rescue because he didn't win right. I guess because he didn't include them when he went away to war. Now, the truth of the matter is he asked them, and they declined. He invited them, and they declined. And one of the things that I think seems so obvious to me is when people in conflict don't get things to turn out the way they want things to turn out, what they do is point fingers. They accuse other people. They make enemies of people who have really been helpful to them, really been protective, been successful, been effective. But who cares about things like that, whether it's in a church or a country or world nations, if things don't get, when the United States decided to make a deal with the Australians to sell submarines to the French got mad, and the French recalled their ambassadors to the United States and to Australia. Said, "Y'all come on back home. You ain't got no business over there," because the French are now, who had been in the 20 Years' War, allies, and in most of the time since World War II, have been allies with the United States and Australia. But over this issue, there was so much bad blood that the French began to accuse the Americans and the Australians of collusion. They have accused the Americans of taking advantage of the French and doing something nefarious behind their backs. That's the way that goes when some people don't get their own way. If they don't get their own way, they begin finding bad things to say about the people who are the winners. And so it was in this case. Now, this is really serious when it gets so deep that they say to Jephthah, "We're going to burn your house down with you in it." But that's not strange to me that people. I've said to married couples in conflict over the years that as I listen to them say all kinds of foul things to each other and about each other, I'll say that what you are doing when you tear down your husband or tear down your wife is like setting your own house on fire, because the person to whom you go when you need somewhere to go, and the person who will receive you when you can't be received anywhere else, the person you can count on when you can't count on anyone else is your husband or your wife, is your spouse. But if you have spent so much time telling your old piece of husband or your lazy wife, or whatever language you can find that will bring down instead of bringing up the person that you promised to live with for the rest of your life, then that's the equivalent of burning down your own house. And so it was in the case of the tribe of Ephraim. They wanted to burn down Jephthah's house, which is equivalent of burning down your own house. Here is the man who you went and got after you put him out to come to your defense, and he came. He didn't have to do it, but he did. To your rescue. But rather than shower him, Jephthah, you can have whatever you got, everything you got it, because that's what they had told him when they made the deal. That you can have all this, the spoils, yeah, divide them like you want to. You the man. So we're with you, Jephthah. They said, no. Look how much stuff he captured. Look how many people he captured. Look how many people he killed. And look how much glory he receives, how much praise, how much adulation he gets because of his effort. But they didn't want to hear that, even though what they were experiencing was good for them. People don't have, you have no right to expect people to do good things for you just because you've done good things for them. It's illogical. It's impractical. It just doesn't happen. People enjoy being the beneficiaries of some benefactor. Enjoy the spoils, the trappings, the outcomes, the bounty from some battle, even if it's been won by somebody they don't like. And so when they get their feelings hurt, or when they feel in any way left out, they tend to raise their fingers in accusation and implication and critique. And so it happened in this case. They were mad because they said Jephthah had not included them, had not invited them. It was a lie, but if you thought that Trump was the first big liar, now you know. He wasn't the first one. They treated Jephthah just like they treated Gideon. Notice Jephthah is related to Joseph, whose brothers didn't like him and put him out. They sold him into slavery. And now here's a man whose half-brothers disliked him so much that they ostracized him and made him unwelcome in his own home until they needed him. And then when they needed him, they went looking for him. And he came, just like Joseph received his brothers, even though they had sold him into slavery. Does that strike you as funny? That's strange? That people would be so ungrateful, that their memory would be so short, that they forget what Jephthah had done for them? Even as a family tradition of bailing people out, that trails back to Joseph. But it didn't stop them. They said, man, I tell you what, we're gonna burn your house down with you in it. And they accused him of taking advantage of them, accused him of cheating them by not allowing them to participate in the war. Reverend, you quiet. Am I messing up? Huh? No comment? Okay. I think this is the first time you've ever been this quiet when you had a voice. All right. Let's see what happens in verses 2 and 3.
Jephthah answered, I and my people were engaged in a great struggle with the Ammonites. And although I called, you didn't save me out of their hands. When I saw that you wouldn't help, I took my life in my own hands and crossed over to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gave me the victory over them.
How about that?
Now, why have you come up today to fight me?
You pick a fight with me. Jephthah keeps it real. They lied and said, maybe the people thought that he wouldn't remember that he had invited them. Maybe they thought he would have forgotten that he asked them to help, and they said no. I don't know. I guess everything we could say about it would be in our imagination. All we know is they said he didn't, and he says he did. Yes, ma'am.
I know sometimes we think Trump's the only liar, but he's not. And we all have a habit of telling a lie until we believe it. And I think that's the best liars believe what they're saying to some degree. And we have a habit of remembering history to the way that benefits us best. That ain't just Trump. That's every last one of us.
And it's in a way that makes us feel better, in a way that makes us feel most comfortable. If they tell the truth, then they implicate themselves. If they tell the truth, then they are exposed. If they tell the truth, then we have to say, we had a chance, and we should have helped you, but we didn't. You asked us to come help, but we didn't.
And even that, a lot of times people get the notion is, I'm going to watch see what happened. I ain't going to get involved yet. And then when they see you doing good, then they want a piece of the pie. That's all that was. Most of it was just jealousy and envy. I look at it as jealousy and envy myself.
Often it is, I think, in real life, in our lives. Mary says it in language that we find a way to describe an event in language that makes us look good, puts us in the best light. So that if I was talking about the football game from Monday night, I would say we had a lot of hurt people. So they didn't play the real Eagles. They played our second string. See, and if I say it enough, and I keep on saying it, well, even before they believe it, they start wondering whether it could be true, and that's how disinformation works. You get enough people to repeat it. Everybody on the same lie. So we call it the party line. We call them talking points. So what do? When the question is asked, no matter what the question is, the answer is always going to be the same. No matter who you ask on the party, when it starts talking about the party's talking points, the party's position, we just agree that everybody going to say the same thing. Everybody tell the same lie. And if you keep on telling the same lie, then you'll get people to begin to believe it because many people depend on the same person or the same few people for all the information they get. And so I'm careful to listen to the news on different networks because I want to know what they are saying on different networks about what's in the news. I want to know what they are saying about various subjects. I want to know what they're saying about various events, and I can spot a lie in part based on the truth that I know. And no matter how many times you tell a person a lie, if they know the truth and they really know the truth, then you won't be able to shake them. But for a long time in the Catholic Church, the people didn't have Bibles. They didn't have access to the Bible. In the first place, they couldn't read. Second place, there weren't that many Bibles printed so that they were available. And in third place, the Bible that was printed for a long time was in a language that most people didn't speak. And so you had to ask the priest to tell you what the Bible says. And if the priest says, you don't need your own Bible, I'll just tell you everything you need to know. And so people depended on that. And then along came Martin Luther, who thought that people needed to be able to look at the Bible and interpret it for themselves. So it is with preachers these days. Some congregations are led by preachers who just tell their members what's in the Bible. But I'm walking through this with you so that you can see where I got it from, this assertion that I make. And you can read it for yourself, and even after that, interpret it for yourself. One of the things that I describe as the genius of Baptist Church is the right for individual interpretation. And what makes that important to me is the same text might say different things to 15 different people. And often what a text says to me depends on what's going on in my life at any given time. That's why you can hear a preacher preach 10 messages from the same text, because when he looks at it, look at it from this way, it says one thing. You look at it from this way, to that interpreter, it says something different. And it often depends on the environment, on the circumstances. And Dr. Sampson calls that the hermeneutical principle. What does this text say in this context about this situation? And so she reads the text, and she reads it in the context of the people who are hearing. Includes what's going on in the world or in the city, in the environment of that people. And so the next time you might hear something different, depending on how different the world is at that time. And so here are these people who have decided that they'll step to Jephthah with a lie and a threat and an accusation, and I don't know what they expected him to say or to do. Maybe they expected him to run. Now, y'all picked him because he was thuggish. You picked him because he was a gang leader. You picked him because you knew he could fight. And so you come to him and say, if you don't see things our way, we're going to burn your house down. But instead of running, he dealt with the thing that they had accused him of, and he dealt with it with the facts. And the facts that he used contradicted the lie that they had told. Now, some people didn't know the difference between the truth and the lie, but some people did. When you think about it, if you talk to 100 people at a time, I'm sure that everybody don't know what you're talking about. Somebody not going to get it. Somebody's going to doze off. Somebody's going to be in a daydream. Somebody be looking at your clothes. Somebody be looking at somebody else. Somebody be trying to think about what to say next. Somebody going to be thinking about who does he think he is. So people have it's difficult to, and maybe foolish, to presume that you hold the rapt attention of everybody who listens to you, and that everybody who hears you hears the same thing from you, even though in your mind, you've been very clear. So Jephthah said, no, I don't know about that burning my house down stuff, but let me tell you what happened. We went to fight. We tried to get y'all to come help. Y'all said no. But I want you to know is even though y'all say no, if the Lord says yes, he'll bring it to pass. So when y'all wouldn't come help, I leaned on the Lord. And guess what? He came through for me. That's who we owe honor and glory for this victory. Not me, not us. It's the Lord who brought us through what we've come through. And sometimes if you consider your strengths and weaknesses, the battles that you fought, even the victories that you've won, and you wonder how you managed to get through what you've come through, and maybe sometimes you've had some help that you could see. But I dare say that there have been many times when the help that you had was invisible help. It's something the Lord did for you, maybe even because you asked. But Jephthah did say he prayed. He did say that the Lord spoke to him and told him, don't worry about it. This is going to be all right. Now, when the Lord tell you, don't worry about it, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. So all you need to do is just walk in his way instead of trying to make your own way. Yes, Reverend.
It speaks to many times when God has spoken to you and other people don't see it. Mm-hmm. They won't, and you open the opportunity for them to come on, go. Mm-hmm. We're going to do this. Mm-hmm. They say no, because they think you're going to fall on your face anyway. But once you go, leave them alone. They don't, and you succeed at what God had given you to do, then they want to come and jump on the bandwagon because they see victory in what you do, and they want to be connected to the win.
And sometimes take credit for their participation, especially if they are left out of the credit. When you start saying, I would like to thank the members of the missionary circle for their part, and I would like to thank the deacons and the junior deacons, and I would like to thank the choir and the musicians, and you miss somebody. Maybe they had something to do with it, and maybe they didn't. They say, he always got to thank people one at a time. He ain't say nothing about me after all I did. It's our tendency to remember things in the way that puts us in the best light. It's human nature. It's the way we are. You've heard me describe it as the burden of our humanity. You wonder why it was important for God to give Moses the commandments. Now, some things he knew we were going to have trouble with. I mean, knew right off the bat. And so he said, Moses, now these 10 things right here, you're going to discover some more, but I'm going to give you a head start. I'm going to tell you these 10 things, these 10 do's and don'ts. And he made that list of do's and don'ts. And as time goes by, we learn more and more about the things that don't make sense. I always think of the commandments as some things God told the world, told the humankind that would be dangerous and counterproductive and painful and destructive for us in our behavior. A lie creates confusion, and wanting what your neighbor has creates confusion. If you fail to honor God as God, that creates confusion. If you have you create graven images and say this is what God looks like in a land where everybody has that different idea about what God looks like. God is old, and God is white, and God has white hair. God has hands like ours and feet like ours and eyes like ours, and we create this anthropomorphical image of who God is, and miss the truth that God is so big that we can't imagine what a spirit looks like. And so we try to bring God down to images that make sense to us, which makes your God much too small. And it creates confusion for everybody because there are a lot of people in the world now who argue about whether God is white or black, as though God could be reduced to something as superficial as skin color. That's small thinking. And so we need language that enables us to wrap our minds around things so that things make sense to us. But there's so many things that are true about God that don't make any sense to us, and yet we insist on trying to reduce the greatness of God to a bite-sized levels of understanding, superficial pieces of meaning, so that we say this is what it is. We create our own constructs. We create our own notions, and then make that the God box and put God in that box. So they wanted to make themselves look good. And so they denied the truth. And then Jephthah told them the truth. And Jesus said the truth will make you free. And so in this case, he tells them the truth. He keeps it real. The problem is, so many people we know can't handle the truth. Verses 4 through 7.
Jephthah then called together the men of Gilead and fought against Ephraim. The Gileadites struck them down because the Ephraimites had said, "You Gileadites are renegades from Ephraim and Manasseh." The Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan leading to Ephraim, and whenever a survivor of Ephraim said, "Let me cross over," the men of Gilead asked him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" If he replied, "No," they said, "All right, say Sibaloth." If he said Shibaloth, because he could not pronounce the word correctly, they seized him and killed him at the fords of the Jordan. 42,000 Ephraimites were killed at that time. Jephthah led Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in a town in Gilead.
All right, here we go. Is that a wolf? Yes, sir. In there with those sheep?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If you insist on fighting, before you throw the first punch, before the first accusation, you already know that everybody's not going to win. Because when you fight, you have a winner and a loser. And so these people say to the gang leader, the ex-gang leader, these people say to the man who just beat the Ammonites and just led the victory over the Ammonites, these people who said they wouldn't fight, maybe they were too scared to fight, that we want to fight now, and we want to fight you. Now, Jephthah could have told them, well, you know, this is not what you want. I know you think it's what you want. I know you think you want some of this, but you don't really want this. But they insisted on going to war, and so they did. And just like in every other war, you have winners and losers. Guess who lost? The Ephraimites. Maybe that's why they didn't fight the first time, because they were too weak to fight. But here they are, these people who are going to burn down Ephraim's house with him in it. These people who threatened him decide that they have some more threats, and they oppose the Israelites. But they couldn't handle the truth. The truth was, God was on the side of the Israelites. It was God who had given the Israelites victory. And Mary says that Paul told her, if God is for you, nobody can be against you. And so it was. They find themselves going toe-to-toe with some people, which puts them at odds with God. If you fight against God's people, you fight against God. And was it Carolyn who told us 2 weeks ago about a slap in she felt like it would be a slap in God's face if she didn't testify on a Sunday morning. And Linda told Carolyn that her arms were too short to slap God in the face. The truth of the matter is, I think what Carolyn meant was metaphorical. As a matter of fact, I know it was metaphorical, because there are different ways to slap God in the face. One of those ways is to ignore the will of God. One of those ways is to oppose the plan of God, to smite the people of God. And so if God is trying to do one thing and I'm insisting on having my own way, guess how it's going to turn out? My arms too short to box with God. And so in this instance, the Ephraimites earned what they asked for. They just didn't understand the folly of what they were asking for. They asked that they reconsider how the land had been divided for hundreds of years. They reapportioned the land beside the Jordan River, the land that was given to the tribes by God through Moses and Joshua. And if God has already divided this land, that's why they're still fighting about it now. How many thousands of years later? Because they disagree about the authority of the God who granted ownership of the land. Jephthah talks to them about that, and they argue about it, and they end up going to war about it and fighting over it. And even though this text says that they lived for numbers of years in peace, the peace was short-lived peace. The peace was a tenuous peace, because every few years there's another fight over the same land. Every few days there's another bombing. Some more children are killed, or some on one side or the other, because the groups there, the factions there, war over possession, ownership of the land. They didn't make no land. They didn't create any land, and they all of it is God's land. That's my. I used to work for a guy who had two sons, twins, and his sons would, when they were angry with the parents, would tell his parents to get out of their room, get out of my room. And the father said to his children, "Let me show you something." He took them outside. He said, "All these rooms is mine. All these is my rooms, and I'm going in every one of my rooms whenever I want to. And if you want to get your room, you have my permission to go get you a room wherever you want it. And then I promise you I'll stay out of your room. But in the meantime, these is my rooms. The whole house full of all the bedrooms, all the bathrooms, everything in here, this is mine. These is mine." And every few years, as young boys and especially teenagers and young men will do, they would challenge their parents on that. And he would repeat the same exercise and remind them the address. He said, "You know where this is?" So that they would know that they were his rooms. All this planet, the psalmist says, the earth is the Lord's. And everything that grows on it, the fullness thereof. Every tree, every blade of grass, every flower, every man, every woman, everything that lives and breathes on this planet belongs to God. At our best, if we could manage to be our best selves, we would learn how to live on it all at the same time. But it seems so hard. We fight over trying to take over territory. We fight over expansion. The Europeans came to this country and built log cabins in the Indians' front yards. And when the Indians say, well, yeah, you can fine, pull up. Let me show you how to hunt. Let me show you how to survive the cold. Let me show you how to grow things. And the European says, thank you so much. Now, can you move a little bit more that way? And a little bit more that way? And they called it manifest destiny, as though God had given to them, the Indians, the natives, homes. And they insisted on taking it. It's sad when we recognize the fact that he made it big enough for all of us to live at the same time, and made enough space so that the span for one lifetime would work, so that when there was a hearse headed to the cemetery, there's an ambulance headed to the hospital, so that it is not so overly crowded, except where we won't spread out, so that there's difficulty getting it done. But it's hard for us to live in a manner that cooperates with the plan of God. And so we find ourselves year after year, nation after nation, culture after culture, community after community, finding things that make us different, and finding reasons to be at odds with the God who said, don't want stuff that belong to other people.
And I was thinking about how many times when we're in situations like originally they had kicked the brother out. When they needed him, because they knew what type of person he was, they went to find him to accomplish what they needed. But after that moment, they reverted back to who they were from the beginning. So because after he had conquered them, conquered the people, and they had gotten victory, then the brother said, come on, we're going to go do this. They said, no. They didn't come with him. People tend to revert back to their original state, their original demeanor, how they had.
Yeah, it reminds me too, Gladys triggered me thinking about the reverse being true too, how easy it would have been for him to have a complex and feel badly and shamed about himself, but instead he believed what God said about him, and that didn't let that relationship crumble so that he could have these kind of victories. If we would just believe what God said, we would do much better.
And so it would be in every aspect of our lives. I think it's when he was finished and prepared to give the planet to us, he said, it's very good. I made this for you. And not only is it good, it's very good. Now, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I want you to be productive. I want you to subdue the earth. I want you to learn all the prizes, all the blessings, all the gifts that I've left. And I've tried to leave them where you could find them. Now, you won't find them all at once. Some of them you'll find now, and some you'll find a long time from now. But you're going to have fun looking for them, because of the course of your life, you're going to have something to do. And in the course of doing these things and enjoying and making all these discoveries, you're going to have a good time. Don't start no trouble, and there won't be no trouble. But it didn't work out that way. Instead of believing God, who told her that she had been made in his image and likeness, if she violated what God told her to do, the snake said, you will become who you already are. You will become like God. If you eat, you will become like God. She was already like a made in God's image, made in God's likeness. But the snake told her that she wasn't. But that not to worry, stick with me and I'll show you how to get there. He lied. And Adam and Eve decided together. And life has been like it is for us ever since. Got to work hard to make the ground produce. Childbearing is tough. They tell me. I've seen it, but I don't know that it's tough, but except what I heard. And so people have a way of and to borrow from Mary and Gladys, forgetting what it means to be as God-like as we are, and how dependable and how reliable are God's promises. So instead of cooperating with God's plan, we make plans of our own. And that's what these people did. And they ended up fighting against Israel and therefore fighting against God. Could I see verse 6 and 7 again, please? Starts, yeah, okay. Go back to 5 to make this make sense. Yeah.
The Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan leading
You know
to
what a ford is?
river.
Shallow body of water,
The Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan leading to Ephraim, and whenever a survivor of Ephraim said, "Let me cross over," the men of Gilead asked him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" If he replied no, they said, "All right, say Shibboleth." If he said Sibboleth, because he could not pronounce the word correctly, they seized him and killed him at the fords of the Jordan. 42,000 Ephraimites were killed at that time.
The thing was, they didn't know how to pronounce the word. Shibboleth is in our dictionaries these days because of this place in the Bible. So that if it's a test, and the early church used to use tests like this to see, to prove that people really understood and appreciated certain points of doctrine and dogma in the church. So if you understand, for example, Trinity, the way we understand the concept of Trinity, and then you will say, okay, you good. But if you don't understand Trinity the way we understand Trinity and understand it another way, and you describe that, that's how we know you're not really one of us. Peter, they recognized Peter warming his hands around the fire because of his accent, because the way he spoke, so that when he lied and said, "No, man, I don't know. He said, "No, I think you one of them," and it was because of his speech. Sometimes it's what it sounds like, and sometimes it's what you say. But what you say will reveal a lot about what you know or don't know. Verse 7.
Jephthah led Israel 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in a town in Gilead.
Yeah. Life is not always fair. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it is not. Everybody can't handle the truth for what the truth is. And in this case, when they heard the truth hurt. And it hurt them to the point that the 42,000 Ephraimites lost their lives because they fought for something that they had not worked to possess. And verses 8 through 13, I think that's the end of the chapter, I believe.
After him, Abez of Bethlehem led Israel. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters. he gave his daughters away in marriage to those outside his clan. And for his sons, he brought in 30 young women as wives from outside the clan. Abez led Israel for 7 years. Then Abez died and was buried in Bethlehem. Ibzad died and was buried in Bethlehem. After him, Elon the Zebulunite led Israel 10 years. Then Elon died and was buried in Alon in the land of Zebulun. After him, Abdon, son of Hillel from Parathon, led Israel. He had 40 sons, 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys. He led Israel 8 years. Then Abaddon, son of Hillel, died and was buried in Parathon in Ephraim in the hill country of the Amalekites.
All right. For all Jephthah did, how many children did he have? One daughter. And his successors had 30 and 20. They became, by this description, very wealthy men. So the reward that Jephthah received was not the same as the reward that his successors received. It was also not the same reward that his predecessors, even to his great-great-grandfathers had received. Joseph, who was responsible for Israel getting into Egypt in the first place, had two Egyptian wives, before he went to live among his own people. And these Egyptian wives are the ones who became the mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers of some of the other people who helped round out the membership in the tribes. But you would think that God would be so fair that for all the good that he did, he saved the people, that Jephthah would have received a reward like quivers and arrows in his quiver like his successors did, but it didn't work out that way. Life is not always fair. Sometimes you get what you make, but always you get what God gives to you. And for some reason, God does not give each of us, all of us, the same thing. Neither does he give each of us or all of us the very thing that our hearts desire. And so Jephthah he had a high approval rating. Everybody thought, all the good guys, the Israelites, thought of Jephthah as a hero. They thought that he had done good deeds. They thought he had overcome many obstacles. He had been ostracized. He had been exiled. He had been put out of the house. And instead of floundering in the wilderness, he went out and made a way and made a name for himself and made for himself a reputation that spread far enough so that when his people were in trouble, they went looking for him to help them out. And while some people might have told them, go to the devil's house, he told them, okay, I see this as consistent with the will of God for my life, and so I'm coming to do what you asked me. And then he proceeds faithfully to discharge the duties that had been assigned to him, to do the work that he'd been called to do. And for his faithfulness, God gave him victory. For his faithfulness, and he had good sense enough to follow God's plan, and so he won. And the outcome that God gave to him was this description of favor. Now, some would say that he made his own place difficult by the vow that he made to put to death his daughter. That he didn't value, didn't understand God as being above, calling for the sacrifice of a human being. And so he said, first thing that comes out of my house when I get back, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to burn it up. It's been argued that he was so naive and proud of what God had done through him that he made a promise that was inconsistent with God's will. He won. He was victorious in battle. But in the end, his successors' rewards were greater than his own. And so it is, there's the Ephraimite Controversy, where they fought over the wills. Will it be the will of God? Will it be the will of the Israelites? Or will it be the God of the Ephraimites? And because the will of the Israelites was consistent with the will of God, the Israelites won. If you want to win, have your will consistent with his will, and you'll win every time. Well, this has been fun tonight, talking about the Ephraimite controversy, and I thank you for your time and attention, for your participation. Meet us on Sunday this way at 11, or you can come in and be a part of our drive-in service. You can, on the parking lot, you can come and be with us in the sanctuary. We have room in the sanctuary on Sundays and continue to practice our social distancing and ask people to show proof of vaccination, so that if somebody's in the sanctuary, I can assure everybody who comes in that everybody in here has been vaccinated. And we ask people to wear masks and to minimize their movement around the building. Although I must say we're very careful after every time we use the building to sanitize and clean things up. And we've taken every effort to minimize contacts with stuff so that we can be smart about this COVID thing. On the 9th and the 30th of October, our neighbor down the street on Kennedy Street, 157 Kennedy Street, Mount Gilead, will have Pfizer vaccines from 11 to 1, the first shot on the 9th and the second shot on the 30th. And I hope that everyone who has not had a vaccination will get one. And if you know somebody who hasn't, tell them there's this really convenient opportunity upcoming. We'll advertise it on our website and in other places, and maybe you will. In the meantime, thanks for coming tonight. See you here next week at 8 o'clock. God bless you. Good night. There you go. Look at Mary.